You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
That was a poem by Mary Oliver, and stunning. I wanted to make this video because I have had a thought, and it's a thought I had a while ago, but I'm going to bring it up to you guys now. The thought is, put love at the center of your life and not discipline. And by doing this, you will be a happier person. You will achieve what you want to achieve. And I will explain what I mean by this. When you put fear and discipline at the center of your life, without love, you are essentially punishing yourself. You need love to be part of discipline. But I think first and foremost, you need love at the center of all your decisions, at the center of how you approach everything. And I will explain what I mean by this in more detail, but I want you to really think about that. And this is something I have applied to my life, and it's absolutely changed the way I view the small things and the big things in my life. I want you to imagine trying to grow a plant. A plant cannot thrive if the sun is absolutely scorching it, and a plant cannot thrive if it is drowned in water. A plant will thrive if it is gently nurtured, if it is bathed in sun, if there is a gentle drizzle of rain that, hydrates it, not drowns it. And love comes from a place that isn't forceful. Love comes from a place that is intentional. Starting a journey towards bettering yourself is an absolutely fantastic thing to do, but it should not come from a place of self-punishment or a place of fear. It should come from a place of love and nurture. And say this journey to bettering yourself, we have a lot of shoulds that we think we need to do. So say the should is, I should eat healthier, or I should exercise more, or I should come off my phone, off social media more. I should be more present. Well, these shoulds are all great, but it really depends on how you approach these new kind of goals that you're setting yourself. So are you approaching these goals from the perspective of saying, if I don't do these things, I am lazy, or I am unmotivated, or I am stupid, say? Are you approaching it from that kind of perspective? I know in the past that I've told myself that if I don't go to the gym, then I'm lazy, as opposed to saying, I want to go to the gym because my body deserves to be cared for. It deserves to have attention paid to it. It deserves to move. It deserves to have strength. Coming from the approach of fear or discipline alone or punishment can actually hinder the desired outcome. And for me, the biggest outcome I'm looking for in general is just happiness, healthiness, and feeling generally fulfilled. But if we are to just take these tangible goals to explain this idea more clearly, you know what nourishes your body. You know how to care for it. It's just not coming at things from the perspective of fear that if I don't do something, then this means I am this. I watched this really interesting video. It was a TED Talk. It was a TED Talk by a death doula, and a death doula is basically someone who is with someone at the end of their life, and they kind of provide emotional care and maybe some logistical care. I think that's sort of how she describes her job. The biggest thing that stood out for me from the start of the speech is she describes how she wants to spend her last day, how she wants to die, essentially. And this is just her ideal setting for death. And hear me out, this will make sense in a second. And the thing that really stood out to me was that for her, being surrounded by her loved ones was an important part. And she even added this really like thought-provoking and like beautiful little touch that when she draws her last breath, she wants everyone to clap. She wants all her loved ones around her to clap for this last breath. But the main thing is that she wanted her loved ones to be there. She never mentioned any of her accomplishments being the thing that would be on her mind. From her experience of being a death doula, this is not what people want at the end of their lives. They don't care about, having the things they've owned and the possessions they have surrounding them. She mentioned, being surrounded by your loved ones, being connected to the people you love and having them around you when you pass. And that's how important love is. At the end of it all, love is the center of everything. And knowing this now can really, really make sure that you live this happy life that you deserve and know what you deserve, because you deserve happiness. And it's great to have these goals. And obviously in life, we kind of sometimes need these tangible goals set up. But I think that goals are for the living and love is for the immortal. There's a book that this really reminds me of, and it's one of my absolute favorite books, genuinely a book that changed my life. And that is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it's basically about indigenous teachings of the land and using these indigenous teachings to better ourselves, to understand ourselves, to also understand like the world we live in. But there's a lot of emphasis on reciprocity, and reciprocity is the exchange of things for mutual benefit. But the emphasis here is on not the receiving, but the giving. So not what you are owed, but what do you give other people? And think about this when it comes to the self. Are you just taking, or are you actually filling yourself? Because you cannot, that phrase, you cannot take from an empty cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So are you making sure you are filled? Are you being generous to your body, to yourself? Are you nurturing yourself? Are you caring for yourself? There are two stories that really stood out to me in the book Braiding Sweetgrass, and that is one of the 3 native sisters, and it's about 3 different plants: a corn plant, a squash plant, and a bean plant, and how these 3 different plants grow differently, but each one of them helps the other in how they grow. So one will shield the other from danger, whilst another one fertilizes the soil of another. It doesn't really matter what the exact ins and outs of it are, but these 3 plants don't need chemicals to grow. They don't need sort of human intervention as such to grow. They are able to grow through helping out one another and sharing in this kind of idea of reciprocity, where by helping the other, you will in exchange also be helped. But the main point is that you are giving. The idea of the chemicals used to help a plant grow is the same idea as coming from a point of view of fear that you won't grow, of kind of a forceful nature, whereas the help from the other plants is coming from the perspective of love and generosity. And I really like this idea because I think it explains that coming from the point of care and love and generosity will actually help you to thrive and to be more connected. And then the other story was of the strawberry. I recommend reading it because it's really, really beautifully written, and a lot of the book is sort of memoir as well. Just absolutely all round chef's kiss. It's, stunning book. But to do with the strawberries, she talks about how in her childhood they would go strawberry picking, and from the strawberries they would make a pie for her father for his birthday. And when we treat nature's offerings as gifts as opposed to commodities, we develop a deeper sense of gratitude and restraint and responsibility. With love, it's not to say that there isn't discipline involved, but the center of your life should be love, should be from the perspective of love. And with love will come discipline, because you are practicing that care and that generosity towards yourself. Here's a quote from the strawberry passage that is just to show you how beautifully written it is, and I couldn't recommend reading the book enough. People have grown weary of the sour taste in their mouths. A great longing is upon us to live again in a world made of gifts. I can sense it coming, like the fragrance of ripening strawberries rising from the breeze. And I think we should change our mindsets from being exploitative to one of gratitude, one of reciprocity, one of care, one of generosity, of gentleness. Gentleness is super underrated. All of these things come from a place of love. Another example of how love helps us to thrive is the book by Claire Keegan called Foster, but there's also a film, and the film is also just as moving. It's called The Quiet Girl, and I'll just read you out the premise. The Quiet Girl is about a 9-year-old girl from a dysfunctional family who goes to live with distant relatives for the summer. Living with a middle-aged farm couple, she discovers a new way of living. And it sounds really basic, but wow, it's such a moving film. I cried my eyes out at the end. You see the stark contrast in how this child is treated when she is not cared for, and how this makes her kind of behave and become really inward. She has like a roof over her head and she has like basic needs met, but she does not have love. And then when she goes to stay with this couple, she finally understands what it feels like to be loved, which is such a sad thing. But yeah, she finally gets to experience it, and it makes her come out of her shell, and it makes her see life differently. Wow, it's such a moving story. Here's a quote as well from the book. Her hands are like my mother's hands, but there is something else in them too. Something I've never felt before and have no name for. I feel at such a loss for words, but this is a new place and new words are needed. Yeah, the impact of love is so great. It can completely transform your life. And that's why you should use that power, because you have the love in you to do that. And just remember what I said at the beginning, that discipline without love turns into punishment. And I want to leave you all with this definition of what love is by Scott Peck. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's or another's spiritual growth. So this fully explains everything I've said in this video. Love is the sun and the water to spiritual growth. Love is not this passive thing. It is a force. It's powerful, and love requires both effort, commitment, though it requires you to be gentle and to not punish yourself. Love does require discipline, but the key here is love and not discipline. Thank you. If you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you as always. And please like, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you all in my next video.